This is a story, obviously, that goes way beyond the City of London. Here in the United States, there have been 24 lawsuits filed against banks involved in setting the LIBOR rate. We're joined now by former federal prosecutor Michael Weinstein for a look at how far the scandal may spread in the United States. Weinstein is now chairman of the white-collar department at the law firm Schotz. He joins us here in New York. Michael, thanks very much for joining us. Give me some sense of this. Are we far enough down this road? I mean, Americans file lawsuits regardless of how far we are in investigations. Are we far enough down this road to understand that the role that some of these American banks may have played in the manipulation of LIBOR?
Well, I think some of the American banks are going to have problems, and the reason is because there is allegations by Barclays executives, as well as through the internal emails that have been produced, that the American banks and some of the other banks throughout the world were doing the same thing, that Barclays was just fined for significantly. So I think the American banks have to really look out for what is coming over the horizon.
I don't know if we are far enough down this road for you to have a sort of good understanding of the difference between the mechanics of how LIBOR is set, which frankly was news to a lot of people, versus how rates are set, let's say Fed rates are set. There seems to be a better market making or market setting mechanism used in the United States than used in the City of London.
That's correct, but LIBOR does have an impact throughout America, and for instance, student loans, auto rates, and some types of certain mortgages are impacted by LIBOR. LIBOR is essentially the benchmark by which many consumer debt is based, and so therefore if you have LIBOR which is artificially increased or artificially decreased by a bank or a number of banks, that's going to be a problem because an individual's monthly mortgage or monthly auto payments are going to be impacted as a result.
Except that we would have to know which way it was impacted in order for a lawsuit to be successful. I suppose you could sue somebody just for manipulating something they shouldn't have manipulated, but in this particular case, is it going to be entirely clear whether a consumer with a loan tied to LIBOR was negatively affected or positively affected because they were manipulating it both directions?
Yeah, it's a fair question, Ali, and I think the answer is you don't know at this point. Certainly there's going to be more evidence that comes out, there's going to be more email traffic that comes out, and you may have whistleblowers come out from any of these banks that talk about what was going on in the manipulation in the market. One of the things I think you're going to have to watch is what other cooperation these banks provide to the U.S. government now that Barclays' domino has essentially fallen. And these American banks are going to feel extreme pressure to step up to the plate and acknowledge what they did, if they did anything, and recognize that it was wrong and ultimately pay a huge fine.
It's Nina Dos Santos in London. What we saw was the CFTC settling and imposing a rather significant, if not record, fine on Barclays for this, for alleged market manipulation. But do you think that there's going to be a probe into actual market manipulation? Because we've got the Serious Fraud Office in the UK investigating, the Department of Justice investigating. So do you think that we're going to see more lawsuits from some of these regulators coming out?
Yeah, I think you're going to, clearly there's investigations going on in America, there's German investigations, I think there's Spanish investigations, there's British investigations. They're now global in reach. And I think the result of all of those investigations will be summed up and used by many of the plaintiffs' attorneys or the class action attorneys to prove their case, which is that these manipulations impacted everyday people. And that's going to be a problem throughout the world. The CFTC here in America, which is the regulator, obviously, for some of these interest rate issues, is going to get scrutinized pretty significantly by Congress as well as commentators throughout the country, because people are going to say, hey, were they asleep at the switch? And I think people are going to really question what they were doing or what they were not doing, and question whether or not they should have stepped up to the plate and done more.
Yeah, I would say, Michael, that's probably going to end up being the bigger story once the dust settles on this, is what role are regulators taking. It's sort of a big shot in the arm to those who think that there needs to be more regulation of this. Michael Weinstein, thanks very much for joining us. Great conversation.